everybody, and welcome to week 6 of the audiobooks series, and this is episode 6. And this week I'm going to do a fairy tale, but I'm going to do it in the style of poetry, and it will be no surprise that I have picked a Roald Dahl poetry book to read Hansel and Gretel from. So before I start the story, I just want to say that I hope you're all doing really well at home and that you've been enjoying the beautiful sunshine and you're keeping busy. I'm sure you've got lots to do, and I hope you have enjoyed the online classes if you have joined in them. And if not, then I hope you've enjoyed the audiobook series so far. If you would like me to read any of your favourite stories or your favourite books, then please let me know by email or by phone, by a text message, and I'll leave them details in the description box below. So this week in our online acting classes, we had a Hansel and Gretel theme. It was one of the fairy tales that we acted out. So I thought I would read you the Hansel and Gretel story by poetry from Roald Dahl's Rhyme Stew. And the pictures inside have been drawn by Quentin Blake, and he is the person that draws all of Roald Dahl's book stories. So this is the cover, and the cover is, this is a cauldron or a pot here, and it's bubbling and it's got all different characters coming out, which are the characters inside this book, this poetry book. So it's nice and colourful, and it's called Rhyme Stew, so I'm assuming that this is because this is a stew full of stories. So here we go, Hansel and Gretel. Mum said to Dad, "Those kids of ours, the food that each of them devours, that Hansel, cripes, that little tick, to watch him eat it makes me sick. And as for ghastly greedy Gretel, I'm turning round to boil the kettle, and while I'm at it she's been able to guzzle all that's on the table." The father merely shrugged and sighed. Mum waved her frying pan and cried, "My motto is that we come first. Them kids should always get the worst. Now look, if we could rub them out, there'd be more beans and sauerkraut and stuff for you and me to eat. Mind you, we'd have to be discreet." The father said, "Well, what's to do? We can't just flush them down the loo." To which the mother answered, "No, they are much too big. They wouldn't go." "What if," the father said, "they fell, quite accidentally, down the well?" "Oh no," Mum said. "I doubt we ought to. It might pollute the drinking water. I think it's better, on the whole, to take them for a little stroll." So there's Hansel and there's Gretel eating all the food. And there's Mum and there's Dad. "And lose them in among the trees. Now surely that's a better whiz." "Let's do it," Dad cried, "and then we'll never see the pigs again." "Wockies," the parents cried, "it's spring, let's go and hear the birdies sing. Let's look for robins in the trees, let's pick some wild anemones." Now Hansel suddenly espies his mother's shrewd and shifty eaves. He whispers softly, "Listen, sis, I don't much like the smell of this. I think our loving mum and dad are plotting something rather bad. I think I'd better mark our track to help us on the journey back." So on the walk, when outward bound, he scattered breadcrumbs on the ground. They walk all four for hours and hours. They see no robins, pick no flowers. The wood is dark and cold and bare, and Dad says, "Children, stay right here. Your mum and I have things to do. We'll see you later. Toodaloo." They sidled off with perfect ease and disappeared among the trees. "They're going to dump us," Gretel cried. "They won't succeed," the boy replied. "We'll get back home, we cannot fail, by following the breadcrumb trail. Just take my hand and come with me. We'll find out where you wait and see." But oh, alas, where crumbs had been, there now was nothing to be seen. Young Gretel cried, "You silly twit! The crows have eaten every bit." Poor little children all alone, the foul and filthy parents flown. Poor little children all forlorn, to face the dismal murky morn. "We'll starve to death," young Hansel cried, when all at once the youth espied a funny little snow-white bird, who spoke as follows, word for word. "Come follow me, you troubled things, I'll take you on my silver wings to safety, to a lovely place where you can live in peace and grace." So here's some pictures of them in the woods. They're following their mum and dad. Some birds. They're eating the breadcrumbs that Hansel is dropping. And here they are talking to the white snowbird in the tree. This wondrous bird then led them forth for miles and miles towards the north, until at last there hove in sight a lovely cottage painted white. And there before the cottage door these two enraptured children saw a sweet old dame with rosy skin, who smiled and said, "Oh, do come in, you must be hungry, little lambs." She fed them treacle tarts and hams, and sugar buns and gorgeous jam. The children cried, "Oh, thank you, ma'am." The woman with the rosy cheeks now smiles again and softly speaks. "My darling children, as you see, you eat extremely well with me." She then serves up the second treat, a very curious roast of meat, all sizzling hot and crispy brown. The happy children wolf it down. The hostess says, "Do have some more. I doubt you've tasted this before." Young Hansel asks her, "Is it lamb? Or is it beef? Or is it ham?" "Whatever it is, I must admit, it's awfully tender, isn't it?" The woman said, "This special meat, only the kind I like to eat." Then Gretel says, "I'll make a bid. This meat is either goat or kid." The woman says, "Well, no, and yes, I must say kid's a clever guess." She smiled and chewed and smiled and looked so innocent and mild. So here is Hansel and Gretel coming in to the woman's house, and here they are eating all the yummy scrummy food. There's Hansel and there's Gretel. As soon as they had left the table, the woman led them to a stable. Stable? They wondered, turning pale. The place looked like a sort of jail, with bars and bolts and horrid things like manacles and iron rings. The woman said, "Go in and look, it's such a cosy little nook." So Hansel, wanting to explore, went boldly through the open door. The woman quickly slammed it. Bang! The bars and locks and bolts went clang. "Hey, let me out!" young Hansel cried. "You stay in there," the dame replied. "I'm going to feed you up a treat until you're fat enough to eat." The brothers Grimm, who wrote this story, made it 1,000 times more gory. I've taken out the foulest scene in order that you won't turn green. It is beyond me how it came to merit such enormous fame. Did parents really, in those days, agree to read such gruesome plays to little children in the night? And did they never die of fright? It might have been okay, who knows, if there'd been humour in the prose. Did I say humour? Wilhelm Grimm, there's not a scrap of it in him. I'll cut the grisly ending short, but even so I think I ought to tell you gently what came next. I'll make it brief, so don't be vexed. Just when the stove is nice and hot and water's boiling in the pot. The pot's for boiling Hansel in, the stove for crisping up his skin. Young Gretel, in her pinafore, flings open wide the oven door. So this is Hansel going into the scary jail room. And this is Hansel being locked in. The fire is going out, she cried. The woman pokes her head inside, and Gretel, with a springy jump, takes aim and kicks her on the rump. She totters forward, in she goes, head first and last of all her toes. Now Gretel, with a gleeful roar, slams shut the open oven door. The temperature inside, she sees, is just on 450 degrees, and soon this red-hot oven heat gives out the smell of roasting meat. The child runs fast as she is able to open up the prison stable. "Hansel!" she shouts. "We're free at last! The foul old dame is roasting fast!" Young Hansel cried, "Oh, well done you! Oh, what a splendid thing to do! But then again, you must admit, you always like to cook a bit." So, here we go. We've got Gretel pushing the old woman into the fire. And then we've got Hansel and Gretel together at last once she has saved him from the prison stable. And that is Hansel and Gretel from Roald Dahl's Rhyme Stew. And I really hope you enjoyed listening to a poetry version of that story. It's one of my favourite fairy tales and I loved it as a child. So I hope you enjoyed sharing that with me this week. I will leave a little task in the description box for you. And if you would like to do it, then please do. But if not, don't worry. Just enjoy listening to the story and maybe you could go and find Hansel and Gretel and read it to yourself, the actual story, because it's really, really good. Next week will be a brand new book, so I hope that you will join me then and share that book with me. But until then, keep smiling, keep reading, and I'll see you next week.